Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar about fine planning in Impact Project Manager. So, as some of you may have noticed already, my colleague Thomas wrote down in the chat in the bottom right corner that you can just input all your questions in the question box, which you will also find down there. But I'll just jump into the webinar, and of course my name is Nikolaj Stephansen. I'm a team manager of Impact in StruSoft Denmark, and I will be showcasing these features for you today. So of course, this webinar is going to be about fine planning. And firstly, I want to show you just a couple of slides where this is the first, and the second one is the rough agenda here. So, sorry, what we'll be looking at today is, firstly, we'll just have a very short recap of the last webinar from a couple of months ago about impact design. So for those of you who didn't attend that webinar, we did that webinar, and then to follow up on that webinar using the same project, we're now planning it. And we'll start with some erection sequence planning, then jumping to transport planning, then to cast planning, and then showcasing one of our new features or newer features, occupied days. So this means that we'll actually start from the end. We'll start from the site and then work our way back to get a nice flow of when we deliver the elements, when we plan the forecast and produce them, and all of these things. So the duration of the webinar today will be approximately 45 minutes up to 1 hour. So without further ado, let's just jump straight into it. And let me open up the project manager here, which is where we'll do the planning from. So as I promised, the first thing we would do was just to take a short recap of what the last webinar was about. In the last webinar, we detailed these elements on 2 floors. And as you can see, the first floor here is blue. That means that the element color status here is elements that are released for design. That also means that are ready for production. So those means that these are ready to actually be produced today. What we did the last time was adding these rough planning dates, and we worked our way back. So the drawings had to be finished yesterday and up till today for those elements on the first floor. So the only thing I did since we left off in the last webinar was actually right-clicking on the elements and producing the drawings. I didn't do that last time because it's not exciting to sit 2 or 3 minutes waiting for 100 drawings to be produced. We have them here, so everything's ready to go, and we have these dates that we'll try to follow today, and you will see later that all of these dates will actually automatically update when we start to do the planning. So first things first is we want to do the erection. And if we look at the element IDs here, you can see to the right here we have erection sequence numbers, and all of them are set to 0 right now. What I'm thinking is, even though the elements on my second floor here aren't ready for production, I can still plan them. So we can still plan the elements while the detailing work is undergoing. But we'll start from floor 1 and say, well, what elements do we need to start erecting on the site? So for this webinar, I will put on a few different roles. So let's say the role here is for the site manager, or whoever needs to plan the erection. So jumping in here, I have my elements. I want to go because I want to put up the sandwich panels first. And what I can actually do is I can just pick out the erection sequence here. So also a thing that's exciting about this, of course, is that the people sitting doing this, doing the erection planning, cast, transport planning, they don't need to have the design or the detailing module because everything will be available in the Impact Project Manager. So now I sort my erection planning, as you see down here, start with number 1, order them by the selection order, and I'll just add the elements. And as we could see before, we had the erection sequence 0, new erection sequence will be 1, and the erection date is automatically filled out with the information I put in the last webinar with the rough planning. So we'll apply this here. And now we will have the erection sequence for these sandwich panel elements. So during the erection sequence for the sandwich panels, if I zoom in here, you can see it says ES1, 2, 3, and so on. First I did the sandwich elements. Now I actually want to get the walls done. And I could also see the whole floor at once if I wanted to do something specific with the walls depending on the sandwich. But let's just do it like this, and we'll just keep going the same way we did with the sandwich panels. We want to put these up in this order, add the elements, apply the erection sequence, jump to the hollow core. What I can do with the hollow cores now is I can look at it in 3D here, but we also have a feature called floor planning. And that will take us straight to, a top-facing view where I can actually say that I'd actually want these to be taken from one side, starting to the right here, and directed in that order, and then the others from the other side here. I want to also add these elements and then apply them. And we'll just do the same thing on floor 2, just quickly jumping in here. As you can see, I can actually still use the floor planning here, and this is actually just a question of preference. And what you also might notice about these panels is that the design isn't 100% complete as it was in the floor below. For example, I can go and check this corner here where I might be missing something there because these elements aren't finished yet. But still, we'll just add them to the erection sequence here because, as I mentioned, there's nothing holding us back from starting to plan these elements, even though they haven't been completely detailed yet or completely designed yet. Let me just pick the elements here. Here we go, adding these, applying, and then what's left are the hollow cores. But for this one, I just want to take it from the other side instead, just to show, the difference of how we can add this, of course. There we go. So now we planned all the elements for erection. If I go and look at my whole building, I like to see it in 3D. We still have the colors, all the blue colors, of course, for the production ready elements. We can go and say, well, I actually want to simulate now the erection sequence and just press play. So this simulation, of course, can be used for early meetings. This is the way we want to build up the building. What are the issues? Do we have space for the cranes that we need, etc.? So everything, this is just making everything nice and visual to keep us updated on how do we actually plan the project. So we can see that they started in the order we did before. And what we'll see just in a couple of seconds when it finishes up here, the slabs or the hollow cores on the top here will start from the left instead and go all the way through to the right. So that, of course, shows us what is the exact erection sequence I want. So this is done in just only a few minutes, including a thorough explanation of how it's done. So now we can see out here in the side, which is sorted by element numbers right now, the erection sequence numbers. So I can actually sort the list view after erection sequence numbers instead, which says 1, 2, 3, etc., etc. And that will mean that it starts actually with element ID 120 or sandwich panel 1012. So, of course, the erection sequence does not have to match the element mark. And this is something, again, that makes it a lot easier for us to say, well, we have the element number, but we like a specific erection sequence. So we don't need to renumber anything, and we don't need to change anything. So now we have the erection sequence. And what we want to do is, as I said before, we started from the end actually. And I already have, if we just jump back here again, a planned erection date for these elements on floor 1, which is over 2 days, the 20th and the 21st. And we already set also a planned production date and a planned delivery date. So that means they have to be delivered no later than the 20th or perhaps the 19th and the 20th, if we can actually plan them to be delivered then if we want them to be delivered the same day. So let's go in, look at my elements here, look at, for example, the sandwich panels again. What I can do now is, let's say I want to plan the delivery of these elements. I can pick the whole floor of sandwich panels, or I could actually pick the whole floor, including solid walls, sandwich panels, and everything. But let's just say that we want to have our sandwich panels on one truck, solid walls on another, hollow coils, and double T's on a third. So it says down here, selected 20 elements. I can drag and drop them to existing stacks, or I can add them to new stacks. So I'll have it to do this auto stack here. So auto stacking, I want to put them on an A-frame up to 20 tons, max element count of 6 elements. Here we go, auto stack is done. 20 elements have been planned. So we have our stacks here. So these are the stacks to be put on the trucks. There could be several stacks on one truck, and but just to keep this simple in this webinar, I've just planned all the stacks to go on each their truck. So in my company standard here, they will fit on one truck. So what I do is I want to transport these as well, put it on the truck for 30 tons. And if we go and look at our transport planning here, we have these 5 trucks. And we can even see the usage in percent and also move around a couple of elements if needed. So let me just change the element color here to transport. You can see now the element colors have changed automatically to match the transport color. So if I go down to transport number 1, it says we have these sandwich panels. As you can see here, the first one to be loaded is 1015, which is the last one here. But we wanted to load them in an order. So the first one to be erected is the last one to go on the A-frame, so we can pick it up, directly erect it. So that done it brilliantly. The last one to be put on the stack is the first one to be erected on the site. So that takes us, of course, to plan our walls, which can be done exactly the same way. Pick the walls, do stack planning, maybe use the A-frame again. 8 elements have been planned. And then plan everything on trucks again. And now I just picked everything, but you can see here it will only take the 2 new ones. 2 stacks have been planned. As you can also see here, now we have 2 colors here as well. If I just go and look at the transport planning, I have 7 different ones now. So continuing with my hollow coil, I want to plan these as well. For this one instead, not an A-frame, of course. Again, erection sequence reversed. As you can see, load date, delivery date, these are automatically filled in. I actually didn't say that before when doing the walls. These are automatically filled in to using, of course, the date of when we had to load it from the rough planning that we did before. So now we have 2, and you can see these 2, if we look at them, the delivery date is set for the 20th, and all the other stacks is set for the 19th, because that fit with the rough planning. And we'll just take these double T's again. So for this, again, we'll just keep it nice, simple, but it might be that I actually want to put these 2 elements on one truck specifically. So we'll do like that. And these 3 on one truck specifically. And I can also add one at a time instead, but this is just to show the different options of how to do this. Many, many different options, of course. We'll load these on 20-ton truck. And now we have these on trucks as well. So that means when I go in, look at my building one, let's just look at floor one, that we've actually already planned this whole floor for transportation. And that means that we know when these elements have to be transported. We use the same date, of course, as the last time. But if we go into the element IDs here, now you'll be able to see that the elements which transports the elements are located on. If I even go in, let's say I pick this one, go in, look at my stack planning, it will mark the stack that is on, as well as the element on the stack. If I go into the transport, it will mark the truck, delivery truck, as well as what element is there. The same thing, if I go into element IDs, it will mark up which element ID do I have here. Again, as in the sandwich panel here, we'll also mark up where the element is. So if I mark the element one place, or for example, in the 3D model here, it will be marked up everywhere else. So it might even be that I have these different windows on multiple screens. So just picking one on one of the screens will highlight in the other screen. Also, I can see all my properties of the element down here and go in and I can see the erection sequence, the transport number, stack number, cast number as well, but we haven't planned it for cast yet. We can see all these planned dates that we did before. Now, actually also, we've added this to a factory. So this is planned to be loaded from factory 1. We could, of course, have multiple factories here. So now we have this floor planned for transport and for erection. So what we want to do then is, there's several ways, of course, again, to work, but what I actually want to do is I want to use my stacks. So I'll just drag this one up here to the right. As you can see, I only have one screen available, of course, for the webinar. This could be dragged to a different screen, or you can actually, manage it the way that we do here. The reason why I put up the stacks here is because I want to do my cast planning using these stacks. So I want to cast my elements in the order that I actually did the stacks. And what I want to do also is I want to check if I have any beds available, because I know that looking at, for example, just choosing this element, I can see this is planned to be produced the 4th, so no later than the 4th at the very least. Right now in the detail view here, you can see this is my factory layout. Of course, just a theoretical layout. Everything is in 3D. We have these small beds, and we have larger beds for the walls as well. And there's actually already something planned from a different project here. So this cast planner will include all your projects on actually all your factories. But this, as you can see here, is my factory 1, and then my wall division, or my wall factory within factory 1. So what I want to check first is, I know that I need to produce them at the very latest at the 4th of July, or 4th of June, sorry. And for me, this isn't a problem because I have so much space. I have tons of casting units, but it might be that it'll take several days to do it, or it might be that I only want to produce them on this one called new wall. So I can go in here, look at my calendar. And my calendar I have here is set to show 4 weeks. So now we're starting from week 22, which is Monday the 28th, which is next Monday. And of course, I know I need to produce these panels at the very latest on Monday the 4th. But as you can see here, my calendar is actually pretty free, so it's easy for me to do this. And so it's not that big of a problem. But I know that actually on wall 6 here, I have something lying there. So I might not want to use this one, or I might want to, I know that it's already been taken, but I can use the rest of it, for example. But let's just go ahead and plan. And to start with, we can actually let's take this stack, which is stack 5. We might want to let's just take stack 1 instead. I think that's better. And I can actually take the stack and drag it directly down to my calendar. So I might want to put it on new wall. So let's see if we can fit all the walls on that one. So I want to put it on new wall for Monday the 4th, week 23. Take these. Put them right there. So you can see now here, this color changed to yellow. And we can also see straight away down here, status says 30. We can just update this one also. Showing the different stacks. Let's just add the transport up here also. So all the stacks from transport number 1 here. So this is one way of doing it, taking the whole stack. As you can see, I had no issue at all finding space on this casting unit. So what I can go in now, I can do several things, but if I want to keep updated really easily, I can just go in, click cast. So you can see here, everything is white except the elements that I just planned for cast. So this means that these are planned for cast using that single stack that I used before. Different ways of doing it is, for example, we can do it somewhat the same as we did the erection planning. So let's say that I want to go in, look at my floor 1, look at all my sandwich panels, and I want to plan these. Then I can use also AutoBed management. Here you can see I also marked the wall panels lying on this casting unit. That doesn't matter because it can already register these. This is where they are. But I want to plan these on wall 1, which I have down here, 3, 2, and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I press this one called AutoBed management, and I can now plan them using the selection order, which I really shouldn't because I just marked them all up. I can also use to plan them after the size, which is what I think we'll actually be doing. Or we can also take the erection sequence reversed again to make it fit with the erection sequence. But what I want to do here is I want to do them using the stacks or using the length. So we take width, then length descending, deselect all of them, want to use these 4. And the production date should be the 4th of June. So let's start it up here. And it says we already positioned 4 elements, but positioned the last 16, created 3 casts. So as you can see here, what it does first is it fills up 1, then fills up number 2, and goes from the largest element to the smallest, and then fills up number 3. So what I can do also now is I can, for example, if I want to micromanage this, I can take one wall, put it up next to the others. I can just put it up here, for example. Now it's in the middle, of course. I don't want it to be in the middle here, but I can then go in, say, well, I actually want to sort these using the erection sequence descending instead. So you can see now I've sorted it with actually these 2 small ones first, because the erection sequence of those were different from the other one. So now I moved the wall from here, and I actually might want to squeeze these instead. So I actually want to sort them descending here again, and they will sort out the elements. So I know for the next time I need to plan something, I'll actually have space on this one. So still as before, this is in full 3D. So I can go in and see, okay, these are the recesses for my double T's, and these are how the elements are rotated. Where do I have holes? Where do I have all the things that I need? So what we want to do now, of course, is I want to also plan the solid walls. But this time I'll use a whole different approach again. And for this one, I just want to drag and drop them directly down instead from the 3D model, because this is where I can see I want to manage it like this. So I want to put them on wall number 4. So I'll just drag and drop this one down. So you can see it will fill it up straight away. And the whole point of this, also dragging and dropping, this is just to keep it as simple as humanly possible, accessible for everyone to use. And as I mentioned before, you can do this using your transport stacks, using automatically, using the erection sequence, or just dragging and dropping. So now I know that this element is probably too big for this space down here. It will say it failed to position the element due to size. And just looking at, sorry, I'm taking a small break now. We just got a question in if we can plan or define in the software a limitation on floor or wall area, say how many square meters we can actually install per day, depending on number of cranes or fixing gangs on the site. So that means that we'll say that, for example, when we did the erection sequence earlier, we'll just jump straight back into this in 1 minute. So when we did the erection sequence earlier, we actually wanted the dates to be set after maximum 10 hollow cores per day, or maximum 3 wall panels per day, something like that. That functionality is not in the software today, but should be something that we can easily add as an add-on. The thing that we usually do when new clients take up the software is most often we put in small tweaks to allow it to fit perfectly to that company. So even if I'm showing you we can do the stack planning, we can do through transport planning, we can erect this and this and this way. The software, of course, is growing all the time. So every single time we get a new customer, usually we actually put in 2 or 3 more features together with that customer so it fits them perfectly. So I hope that answered the request. And let's just jump straight back to this again. So now I have planned my walls, but I want to plan them for production latest today. But then again, I'm thinking I don't want to use the 3rd of June to produce these 2 last elements. What I'll do instead is I just think what's best for me is to produce them together with the sandwich panels on this bed, so I'm sure that I can produce everything on the same day. So this might be that normally we produce sandwich panels on some beds and we produce solid walls on some beds, but in this case I want to optimize a little bit. So even though I'll still plan them in here. So we can of course go straight in to the 3D view. This could be accessible in the production hall on a big screen or on a Windows tablet or a small PC with touchscreen. That, of course, if you have a touchscreen, works for those of you who know. It works completely just as browsing with a mouse regularly. So right now I'm using a regular computer mouse. If I had a touchscreen, I might as well just be using my hands instead, because I'm just pressing buttons, and of course the system is adding all these things in for me, even filling out the dates. Oh, let's jump to the hollow cores here. What I think I'll just do is just move the transport and stack planning down again, just so we have a little bit more space. So we can see the element color is by cast now. Everything's planned for cast except the hollow cores and double T's. And what we want to do is, of course, also plan those. But of course, we don't plan those in our wall factory. So I'll just jump to also our factory one, where we have some hollow core beds. So picking these, saying, well, I want to do them all. The order for me actually doesn't matter that much. I'm just using the order bed management, putting on the biggest ones first. So just using hollow core 1 here and adding those. It will come up and say, well, actually, we have an issue here because we could only position 6 of the elements. So you can see up here, if you look, that it positioned all the full width elements, starting from the length, then getting shorter, but it didn't position the element that was cut, and of course the smaller elements. So we can look here, see that, well, it positioned these just fine, but let's take the last 4 pieces here, put it in maybe to hollow core 2 instead, starting that one out. And we can see that, well, it might actually be that we can even fit this one into the last one. We can try, as you can see, because before we used a rule, and then it didn't check for this. So now, again, I'm doing this micromanaging to completely optimize the flow. I want to use these casting units as much as humanly possible. And of course, wherever the rules don't apply for the computer, well, I'm sitting here anyways, looking at this, so I can quickly just drag and drop it to wherever I want it to be. And then what I can do is, well, I can align this to the left, and it will squeeze in, sorry, I want to squeeze the gaps. Squeeze in the gaps here, as well as squeeze in the gaps here. So I won't be looking at all the functionality here because, of course, you can see what I'm doing when I'm clicking here. I'm right-clicking. And then there are tons of different things I can do. You can see here straight away, it puts on hollow core bed 2, 3 elements using strand pattern 4, the hollow core type. This is my name for the hollow core 19, which is a hollow core of 185 millimeters in this case. So we can go down here and see everything again in full 3D, how the hollow core look. So let's do the same thing with the double T's. And I have one called slabs here, which is one I did because of the width. Of course, we can't produce double T's on hollow core beds, both because of the width and also because, of course, double T's usually go in completely their own casting molds, and it's not possible to produce them on beds like hollow core beds, of course. So I want to put them down here. This could be called double T's instead. We could have several, but I just have one on 50 meters here. So I want to put these down, and I can actually just drag and drop like I did before. And we can see that now it sorts out these double T's. Again, the same thing, going into 3D looking. And what you can even see is also marking of the strands that goes in. So that goes to, we have put in 2 strands in each of these. Looking at the hollow cores, we can also see the strands going through here. This is just to give an easy overview for the people using it, of course. And for this one, the strand pattern is called 2 times 3 instead. So these are names that we input earlier in the detailing part or the design part. These ones, we call them hollow core, but we call them DT for double T's, 2.4 meters, 550 height. So those fit straight into this. So if I look at my floor 1, it actually means that I've planned the whole floor now. Now, if I even go into the element IDs, before we had planned production dates that said the 4th and the 5th of June, but now we only have the 4th of June because we can produce them all the same day. So it automatically updates this planned production date. What I'm sitting in now is actually what we call the environment for the transport planner or the transport manager. What I can quickly do is change the environment to cast manager instead, where I'll be directly able to see, are the elements ready for production? have I planned them for a cast, and what cast number have they been planned for? Over here we can also see which units they have been planned on, and also if I go a little bit further, we can see the transport number, stack number, the sequence, and pretty much all the information on the elements. You can even see to the right here number of strands or strand pattern. So if I look at this element, for example, this one, it will mark it straight here. It says, well, there's only 3 strands in this one, even though it uses strand pattern number 4, of course, because this element is cut. And of course, for the ones that says number of strands 0 is because they are walls or sandwich walls. So all of this information gets filled out automatically in this list form, which actually, well, eliminates the need for pen and paper, because we have everything here, live data, everything's updated. When you're looking at the webinar here, of course, I'm sitting on one PC, but Impact itself, of course, is a database service, so it's installed on a server, and whoever does the planning, who are allowed to do the planning, well, it'll pop straight up on all the users in the whole company. So the only things that we need to see these statuses and casts are the project manager licenses, and if we want to do something down here directly in the cast is, so you can see modules here, a cast planning module. So immediately available for everyone. Of course, when I say we can do it paperless, we can of course still print out reports, and all these things we'll come straight back to them in just a few minutes. So now everything's planned. So how do we get to produce them then? Let's say, for the sake of it, that these hollow cores, I don't want to produce drawings for those. I want to put them out on a plotter instead. We'll export to a plotter, export to Unitechnic and plotter, or different formats, for example. We can of course set something specific up for your company as well. And depending on what software you used before, if you used Impact, of course, it will send out the Impact files. And so let's say for these ones, even though we have drawings, we actually don't want to use them. But I want to use the drawings for the walls, because let's say, of course, we can get a wall plotter as well, but even though we do have a wall plotter, we'd probably like to have our drawings handy. So going into wall 2 here, I have to produce it the 4th of June, which is in only a couple of weeks. So what we want to do is we want to get everything ready for these elements. So I go in, take this one. This is the production manager now. It says, well, I want to open up the drawings in PDF format. So now it says, well, what do you need? Do you need the main drawings and reinforcement drawings, or for example, only main drawings? So in this case, we'll say, well, actually, what I want to do is actually only need reinforcement drawings, because I need to send this out to my reinforcement company, or if you do it yourself, of course, send out the drawings to those. So say we'll open these in the PDF viewer. It'll open straight up in a viewer which is built into the project manager as well. 14 elements and all the drawings we need. So these can just be plotted directly on a printer, or again, eliminating the needs for drawings, physical drawings, just open up maybe even just a single one, PDF, all layouts, saying, well, this is the one I need to produce now. Close it down, opening up the next one, going around with small Windows computers in the production hall. You can do that, for example. So it's a choice whether you want to do pen and paper or not, of course. But everything is immediately available in here, which is the most important thing. It should be easy just to go in, grab the file, open it up. What we can even do is also, if I click the plot here, it might be that our design department hadn't even produced the PDFs. And of course, we don't want to open DWD files. We don't want to go in, open it up through CAD software. We just want to plot them. So we press the plot here, and it will plot out the PDFs and make them immediately available again. So jumping on to the next thing, which will be what then if they have the drawings. That's completely fine, but let's just open the drawings here again, everyone. And what we can see is the drawings. These, of course, are the drawings we produced the last time. I'm just zooming in a little bit. And of course, I can see here we have these different cast-in materials, connection loops, and all these things. But I don't want to, count 5 connection loops for this element, 5 connection loops for that element, 2 lifters, 7-ton lifters for that element, etc., etc. I want to print out a report, including everything. I could just hand directly over to the production guys. Of course, they could click the elements, look at all of them, but sometimes, even though I said before, we don't need paper, sometimes it's actually a nice thing to do, or to have, sorry. So I can print out a cast report, including pictures. Let's print that out from here. So now I put out the report into Excel, took a screenshot of all the elements, and then we have data here with these are the elements that are on this casting unit. So you can see this is not put up to a correct page, but we'll also have, as we can see up here, for example, 70 connection loops in total for this whole casting unit instead. This is one of the ways of doing it. This is the date. How much concrete am I using? The length of the table, the area of elements, etc., etc. So this could be set up almost in any way you can imagine. This is just a standard setup. As you can see, half of it is actually in Swedish. StruSoft, of course, is a Swedish-based company. So it depends how you would actually like to see it. You might not want to see anything about the concrete or the reinforcement. You might want to save space for where the elements are placed instead. But there, of course, are several different ways of also printing out these reports. So I could do it from this 3D one where I'm looking at 2D right now, because this is what I think is easy. But when you're working with several projects, of course, often the calendar is a better thing to use. So if I go in, look at my wall 1, for example, go in here, say, well, I want to set PXMLs files, again, for plotters, for example, or reinforcement machines. I can even print out a whole bunch of different reports. So saying I have Monday the 4th, I want to print out a report on everything I need to use from the new wall bed up until wall 4, let's say that. Mark all of these up. Say I want to print out element labels. So now we'll print out element labels for all of these days, or all the elements actually. So as we can see, Impact here is preparing a report, which should be finished in just a few seconds. And what the report tool does is, again, it will create a report in Excel where it will create one page for each element label, so it can easily be plotted out to a label printer. So we can see up here, I have the label here, which is a very simple label, even with a QR tag for our Impact mobile application. And the element name, ID, length, width, height, weight, when is it cast, what is the cast ID, and then I can just browse through here, of course. As you can see, there's a little bit of additional information out here to the right, which will probably have been me testing As you can see, it says concrete, mineral wool, concrete. We'll be testing the materials of the sandwich panels. And of course, these can be moved into the labels. The labels could also be much more advanced, bigger, smaller, however you like them, of course. So let's just close this one down. So what happens then if I want to move all the elements from wall 2, because I don't want to use that anyways. I actually want to produce these elements yesterday, or the day, oh, sorry, not yesterday, but the day before, the 3rd of June, instead of the 4th of June. I can't drag these ones to the 3rd because I can only see it one day here. So what I do is I go into my calendar, take wall 2, I drag it up, and I set it to be produced here on Friday instead. That would be the 1st, of course, because Sunday we won't cast anything there. Maybe also wall 3, but I might want to just drag that straight on top of the other one. As you can see here, we will just move them accordingly. So that brings us actually to the last part, which I was talking about, which was occupied days. Let's say that this wall 1 is down the 6th for maintenance. That means that we set the availability to occupied for maintenance. As you can see here now, we get these red lines there. If I go in to the detailed view, Wednesday the 6th, we'll have these red lines here, which means that, well, we're actually not supposed to plan here. Even if I try planning, let's just quickly, just for an example, for the sake of the example, pick one of the walls from our 2nd floor, drag it down. Are you sure you want to place the element on a cast unit occupied for maintenance? We can do it if we force it through, because it might only be part of that casting unit under maintenance. But of course, let's say in this case, we don't. So what happens if we do the same thing from wall 4 that we did on wall 1 before the casting bed, wall 1? I'll move that over on the same day, and it moves them, and of course it skips that day where it's occupied for maintenance. So again, that's the whole point actually, is to skip the days that are occupied for maintenance. Or it might not even be a day, it might just be a specific casting unit in this case, because as you can see here, Saturday, Sunday are set to non-working days, which is as a standard. We can even still plan elements on those by dragging and dropping manually, but the occupied days lets the system know that we don't want to cast anything here unless we tell the system otherwise. So it will jump over the occupied days every single time. And of course, there are multiple different occupied days. It could also be that it's actually occupied for an element because the elements cast on the day before takes more than 1 day to cast. It could also be that we're casting filigree walls and we want to occupy 2 casting beds. We can occupy one with an occupied for element and then put the element down on the other one. But let's go back through the dates here. So we have wall 1 to be cast on the 5th, to be cast on the 7th, and going back also the 4th, and then we have the weekend, and then the 1st. So checking in here with our element IDs, just floor 1, the detailed information we have. Now we can actually see again the planned production date in our list view here changed to the 1st, the 4th, and going down. But still the planned storage dates are the 18th, so we're in good time. The last time when we planned this was we put on, we put on a couple of weeks. Then again, another interesting thing is what happens then if we take an element like this one, which is supposed to be produced on the 4th, sorry, we have to update this one. We'll just pick this one there instead. And then what if this element, what if we move this one? So let's say, for example, I can go in, just remove it from this cast, and then go to next month, July, the 20th of July, for example, planning that down. Now it says, well, this element actually has a planned delivery date before the cast date. Are you sure you want to continue? Well, let's just say, yeah, we want to continue. Then refreshing the ID in here, we'll be able to see, or you can see it already now before refreshing the 20th here. Now the next question might be, what if then, we'll just take floor 2. What if then we have these elements and we try to cast them in the past? So that might be the 1st of May. We'll put that in. Now it's been planned, 2012. Looking at that, didn't have a planned production date before because of course we only planned the first date, but now it's red. So that of course means that something is wrong. Red means that, well, it's too late to produce this element now, or at least according to plan. So if we then go in to our whole building and look at all our elements, we can see, oh, we have a status, all of them have been planned, and then of course there are some that haven't been planned. What I might want to see is I might want to go in, I want to filter out the planned production date, and I only want to see the ones that were planned for the 4th. As you can see, as soon as I click that, it moved them around, so only showing me elements planned for the 4th of June. So this is a very quick way of arranging the different information. What I can also do is take this planned production date, pull it to the top here, and we can see in this project how many elements have we planned to be produced and on which days. So it'll give us a very, very quick overview, very fast. So, of course, many of you might be thinking, what? Of course, I have tons of projects. I'm doing 100 projects at the time, planning all these projects across each other. And for that, of course, the cast one here shows all the projects, but that is a job for the Impact Resource Manager, which is actually similar to this project manager, just without the 3D model. So that means that in the Resource Manager, we'll have this tab instead, where we have ID and element mark, we'll have project as well. So we'll be able to see all the elements in the list. Which project is it? When do we plan it? That's the thing for a whole new webinar, because we can spend hours and hours just talking about how to plan projects across multiple projects, of course. But the way it's done is very, very similar to this one. Just instead of clicking the 3D model, we just click out the elements directly in the model here instead. So let's just jump forward to the 4th of June again. The last thing we need to do when the elements are produced, we've plotted out all these lists, we've plotted out all our drawings. We say, well, now this cast is produced, for example. So this has already been produced, even though it's in the future. I forced it through. So you can see now it's red. That means that I can't move the elements around. I can't add elements to this, cannot add to produce casts. So as you can see, there are rules for everything just to make it as easy as possible. I talked to a guy once, a couple of years ago, and we were talking about how to make these things accessible and And what we're talking about is you actually have to go out, you have to be able to go out, grab a person off the streets, just as if you hire someone new. They should be able to jump straight into this, use it from day one. So that's the whole point of making everything visual, is even users with no IT experience, maybe even with limited planning experience, they'll quickly be able to see what's happening here, how much space do I have, which days do I need to fill in, which days do I have free, etc., etc. So it's just everything's made so visual just to keep it easy to see what's happening at all times. So let's just set this one as, I don't want it to be set as produced anymore. So let's just set it as planned again. And of course it's planned again. Now I'm allowed to move the elements around. So, well, that actually concludes the webinar for today. And if there are any more questions, just feel free to ask them now. And of course, if there aren't any more questions, we can just end the webinar. You have, let's give it a couple minutes. And meanwhile, we'll just go in looking at the PDF, viewer, for example. We can also go in, look at this element here, open in the PDF viewer, opening up everything, set it to zoom. Just looking straight at my drawings. I have a small screen, unfortunately, but being able to produce through this element, I have one element which is ready for production, which of course I already knew. And then, well, they can just go ahead and cast everything because everything's already done, made ready for both reinforcement and the production guys. So this is very easy. No need to email anyone, jump into an office saying, I need the newest drawings, because the drawings in here are always the newest drawings produced. We can actually even go in, let's say we don't have PDFs, we're not allowed to plot. We can even go in into the built-in DWG viewer, which doesn't require AutoCAD, which doesn't require anything, and look, how is the element put together? Reinforcement, sections in the element, dimensions of everything. So these are all the different parts. Of course, to get all the details set up as the drawing, you need to use the drawing system, but this one also gives you the possibility to see how do I produce the different details, even though you don't have the drawing in a PDF format, for example. So looking to the side here, it seems like we don't have any further questions. So I'd just like to bid you all a good day, of course, and hopefully see you on our next webinar. And you probably already received a little bit of information about the new webinars up until summer here. And well, see you then. And thank you all for following the webinar. Have a nice afternoon, evening, or whatever your time zone is right now. Cheers and bye-bye, everyone.